It started as another Monday morning on The View. Cameras rolled. The audience laughed. Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward, her voice dropping into that familiar mix of sarcasm and certainty. And then she went there. Direct, personal, mocking Donald Trump by name in a way that was meant to draw applause. But instead, a ripple went through the control room. One that wouldn't fade, because within the hour, phones were ringing, ones Whoopi didn't know about. Calls that skipped producers, bypassed PR teams, and went straight to the top floors of ABC. And by the time lunch was served, the decision had been made. The View was finished. All that was left was to figure out how to tell the cast. This is the story of the morning that blew up daytime TV and the one move Trump made that nobody saw coming. Like what you're about to hear? Hit that subscribe button right now, because the next scene is where the whole room shifts. The lights above stage 23 hummed with their usual warm glow, throwing a polished sheen across the View's glossy desk. Cameras set poised at perfect angles, crew members moving in quiet, precise choreography. This was a show that had been on air for decades, an institution in daytime television, and everyone in that room believed they knew exactly how to manage it. In the control booth, producers sipped coffee and scanned the run sheet, confident the morning segments would follow the script. Whoopi Goldberg, seated dead center, leaned back in her chair with the calm authority of someone who'd done this thousands of times. Her voice, her expressions, her timing. She knew how to spark a reaction without losing the audience. Or so they thought. Because what was about to happen wasn't in the teleprompter, wasn't in the rundown, and wasn't something anyone at ABC had rehearsed for. It started small, just a casual remark during the panel's banter. A smirk. A setup. Then, without warning, Whoopi aimed straight at Donald Trump. Not policy, not politics. Personal. The kind of line that left no room for walking it back. And for a few seconds, it worked exactly the way she wanted. The audience laughed, clapped, leaned in. But in the control room, one of the senior producers froze, eyes narrowing. He knew what this could turn into. Not ratings, not viral clips. Trouble. Because Trump wasn't the kind of person to let something like this slide. And if anyone in that studio believed they could control what came next, they were about to learn otherwise. It started as a ripple, just a quick, sharp laugh that cut through the panel's chatter like a slap on polished glass. Whoopi leaned forward, eyes glinting under the studio lights, and delivered the line she'd clearly been holding in her back pocket all morning. It wasn't just a jab at Trump, it was a surgical strike, the kind meant to sting in the exact spot she knew would get a reaction. The audience erupted, the kind of loud, rolling laugh that fills a studio and makes the walls feel smaller. A couple of the co-hosts leaned back, smiling in that "we know this will trend" way. But somewhere between the laughter and the applause, something shifted. Two camera operators exchanged quick glances. The floor manager stopped signaling cues for a beat too long. And in the far left wing of the set, a man in a tailored suit, ABC's legal counsel, took out his phone and started typing fast. What nobody realized yet was that the sound in the room wasn't just joy, it was bait. On the other side of the country, in a quiet office layered with thick carpet and darker intentions, someone else was already watching the clip. The laugh had been cut, clipped, and sent before the studio audience even sat down again. By the time Whoopi leaned back in her chair, smiling like she'd won the moment, the fuse was already lit, and everyone in that room was about to learn just how short it really was. The clip had barely hit 30 seconds on social media before Trump's team saw it. The laugh, the delivery, the audience reaction, it was all packaged perfectly for outrage. But Trump didn't send an aide or a statement. He picked up the phone himself. No press conference, no draft memo. Just a direct call to one of ABC's highest-ranking executives, the kind of number only a handful of people had access to. According to one staffer who would later whisper about it off record, the call started with silence, Trump letting the other end speak first. It didn't last long. His voice came in low and steady, without the bluster the cameras knew. This wasn't campaign Trump. This was dealmaker Trump, the version that knew exactly which pressure points to press and how hard. "You and I both know," he reportedly said, This wasn't about politics. It was about money. You keep her on, you'll find out what it's like to lose both. No threats of lawsuits, no shouting, just that one line followed by a list of advertisers he'd spoken to in the past. Names that paid millions to keep The View alive. By the time the call ended, the executive had his head in his hands. In the control room, no one knew the conversation had even happened. But a producer noticed a sudden shift in instructions over her headset. Flag every segment, Whoopi's in, send me the raw tapes. The war had officially begun, and not a single camera was pointed at it. The morning meeting at ABC's headquarters wasn't supposed to be about The View. The agenda had been set days earlier. Ratings updates, a pitch for a new drama series, and a review of the network's fall schedule. But within minutes, all of that was swept aside. An assistant rushed in with a folder. Inside was a printout of trending topics, advertiser call logs, and, in bold, the overnight ad revenue projections. The Trump-Whoopi clip was everywhere, and so were the emails from brands asking for clarity on the network's position. It wasn't subtle. When a detergent brand that had been with ABC for over a decade hinted at pausing their sponsorship, the room went quiet. It wasn't about whether they could weather the storm. It was about whether they should. The network president leaned forward and asked a question that chilled even the most seasoned executives. How much longer can we afford her? The legal team pushed back. There were contracts, clauses, appearances to honor, but the head of advertising didn't blink. Every day this runs, we lose leverage. Every hour we delay, we lose money. This isn't a season problem, it's a quarter problem. By the end of that meeting, they weren't discussing if The View would change. They were discussing how fast they could pull the trigger without detonating the entire network. Someone in the corner started counting days on their fingers. They didn't make it past 4. The next live taping of The View never reached the public. The set was lit, the audience was seated, and the cameras were rolling. But halfway through the pre-show warm-up, a floor manager received a text that made his hands freeze mid-gesture. Upstairs in the control room, the network president and head of programming had just come out of a closed-door call with legal. The verdict was blunt. The episode was not going live. Not today. Not ever. They decided to cut the feed before the first segment, replacing the slot with a rerun of a cooking competition. No announcement, no explanation. Just a sudden, jarring silence on social media as regular viewers wondered why their feed was filled with a celebrity chef flambeing shrimp instead of Whoopi leaning into her monologue. Backstage, the cast didn't even know yet. A producer pulled Whoopi aside. There was no small talk. Just 4 words. We're done. It's over. Whoopi stared, unsure if it was a stunt, a prank, or some sort of last-minute gag for the cameras. But the cold look on the producer's face told her otherwise. This wasn't about a break or a suspension. It was the end. Somewhere across the country, in a penthouse office, Donald Trump's phone lit up. An aide whispered the news. The smile that spread across his face wasn't for the cameras. It was the kind you wear when you've been waiting for a checkmate and the other player just tipped over their king. The network tried to frame it as a strategic programming decision, but the real confirmation came within an hour. Not from ABC's press team, but from a private call that leaked before sunset. It wasn't an executive conference call. It wasn't a PR damage control meeting. It was Donald Trump on the line with a key figure in ABC's parent company. And unlike the careful words used in official statements, Trump's tone on this call carried no pretense. He didn't talk about ratings. He didn't talk about budgets. He talked about names. He talked about what Whoopi had said, word for word. He repeated the moment she mocked him, imitating her voice with a precision that made the room on the other end go quiet. Then he shifted from mockery to message, that some lines crossed on national television have consequences, and those consequences don't always come through the front door. The leak revealed one chilling sentence from Trump's side. She thought it was a joke. Now let's see if she's laughing when the lights go out. By the time the sun dipped below the skyline, ABC's quarters were buzzing, not with production chatter, but with whispers of what had just happened. Whispers that confirmed the cancellation wasn't about scheduling. It was about settling a score. When the official announcement finally hit the air, It was wrapped in corporate language, a restructuring of programming, exploring new creative directions. But in living rooms across the country, people didn't need a translator. They'd seen the segment, they'd seen the smirk, they'd heard the mockery, and now they'd seen the hammer drop. The cameras inside the View studio were already being dismantled when one final clip surfaced online, raw, uncut, taken from a backstage phone. It showed Whoopi sitting in her dressing room, still in full makeup, scrolling her phone with a stunned expression. Someone off camera asked, "Did you see the statement?" She didn't answer. She just set the phone down and whispered, "He actually did it." That clip exploded before midnight. It wasn't just about a show being canceled. It was about a line being drawn in the sand between a former president and one of daytime TV's most untouchable personalities. By morning, hashtags weren't debating whether Trump had pulled strings. They were assuming it. The question had shifted from if he did it to what comes next. And for millions watching, one thing was suddenly clear. This wasn't just a feud. This was a warning. If you were in that control room or saw that smirk the moment before the laugh, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments. And while you're here, hit subscribe so you don't miss the stories they never want you to hear.